Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 7 of Bumble Stitches. It's really good to be back. I did unfortunately miss last week's podcast due to a bit of a cough and cold. I really didn't want to subject you guys to me coughing and spluttering and sniffling all the way through an episode, so I thought it was best to leave it. But I have to say, I was surprised at how much I missed doing the podcast and having a chat with you and showing you guys what I'd been up to. So I was really looking forward to this week's episode. Just to get the admin stuff out of the way, there isn't really very much. You can find me on Ravelry as Bumble Stitches. I am in the process of setting up a Ravelry group for us so that we can have all the show notes in one place, so that if anyone's got any questions, and we can hopefully have a little bit more interaction over on Ravelry. And you can also find me on Instagram as Nicola_Kerridge. So yeah, please check me out there. It'd be really nice to see you guys and have a chat. It's really great to get so many nice comments on the podcast. There have been lots of lovely messages and comments about the podcast, so that makes me really happy. So without further ado, finished objects. As you can see, I'm wearing my Madewell cardigan. Finally finished it. Perhaps that's one of the benefits of a 2-week gap between the podcasts. And I'm absolutely thrilled with it. It's a pattern by Joji Locatelli. It's the Madewell, as I mentioned, and it's a cardigan. I'm going to try and stand up and show you guys a little bit more of it. It's knitted all in one piece, so there's no seaming. And it's got the decreases there to shape the sleeves. And then you just pick up, you knit the body all the way down in one piece and then pick up the stitches for the sleeves afterwards and add the band for the neck, which joins onto the ribbing. So the great bit about it was, for me, somebody who absolutely hates seaming and isn't that great at it, that once I'd finished and popped the neckband on, the cardi was ready to block. And yeah, no other finishing other than that. So I'm really pleased with how it turned out. The blocking was, I had never blocked a finished garment before. I blocked pieces of a garment to seam together, which I did with Justin's cable sweater, which I showed in a previous podcast. But this particular one, being all in one piece, I wasn't really too sure. So I just soaked it as usual, laid it out on blocking mats on the bed, did minimal pinning. I only pinned the very bottom of the neckband down, which is where they'd curled up a little bit, and left it. It took a good sort of 3 days to dry completely. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the finished result. This was knitted in yarn I bought from the Little Yellow Uke Etsy shop, which is from the Little Yellow Uke podcast with Zena. And I got her to dye me up a sweater quantity of this, and it's her soprano sock yarn in the Chantilly colourway, and you can see the shades of pink. Really pretty. So I'm very pleased to have that as a finished object this week. Really pleased with the way it's blocked out and the way it fits. Yeah, big achievement, I think. So excellent. Sorry, a bit fidgety today, but there you go. So that is my finished object, my big finished object. I will probably slip it off in a minute because it's actually quite warm in to wear in the house. Although it's only a 4-ply sock yarn, being you know, the rich wool bent. I think it's 75% merino and 25% nylon. It's really super warm, so I'll probably pop it off in a minute if I get a bit overheated. Right, moving on. Other than this finished object, I don't have a lot of finished objects going on. This was kind of my main objective, to get this one finished, and the ribbing on the neckband did go on a bit forever. But I do have a hoe, half finished object, which is my vintage Fairy Light sock. Last time I got this out on the podcast, I thought I completely finished, but I hadn't actually kitchened the toe. It's not been blocked yet, but at least it's one sock finished. So this was part of the Christmas Eve cast on that Danny of Little Bobbins it runs every year, which you're all more than familiar with, so I won't keep repeating myself on that, with a little pattern detail with the fairy lights and then down to the rib. So that's a hoe. And the other sock, I really want to get this finished because I feel that the whole sort of wintry Christmas theme is something that I'm a bit over now. So I really need to crack on and get this one finished. And it's underway, just got a little start on it. These were the first socks I've ever knitted completely on magic loop, and I did the first one and then there was a bit of a gap in between starting the second one, and I couldn't for the life of me get my head around casting on and joining in the round on magic loop. So did that about 3 times before I sort of got my head around it again, but once I got back into the swing of it, it was fine. So I should carry on with those. Still got plenty of yarn left. I'm good to go on that one. So then we can put the winter stuff away for hibernation, because I think everyone's quite ready for a bit of a more spring-like feel to what they're doing at the moment. So that's kind of a half-finished object and a work in progress all in one. I think it is time to take the cardie off now, so just bear with me while I take that off. Right, there we go. So that's made well done. I'm just going to throw that onto the bed. Right, other works in progress. Now, I mentioned in the last podcast that I was interested in taking part in some knit-alongs this year and getting more involved, other than just doing the knitting, getting involved in the Ravelry groups and with hashtags on Instagram and generally sharing progress. So what I've decided to do, I'm knitting an Andy Satterland pattern, which is to take part in Katie Inside Number 23's Andy Sat-along, which is a knit-along that she's running from, I think it was 1st of January till the 31st of March. So this is the pattern that I'm going to be doing, the Wainthrop cardigan. I won't show you too much detail, it's a paid for pattern. But there are some other nice images that I'll just find that I've printed out. I don't know if you can see there. It's got some nice sort of simple lace detail there. And it's a short cardie, waist length cardie, but with the long sleeves, and I like that. I wear a lot of dresses for work, and I thought it's quite a nice shape because it nips in at the waist. It will sit nicely with some dresses that I have. So this is knit with a worsted, always have trouble saying that word, worsted yarn, and the pattern recommends a Rowan pure wool worsted yarn. So I spent ages and ages looking at different yarns online, various different websites, and it was everything I was choosing, everything that I liked was working out in the sweater quantity to be really quite a considerable investment. Now I do spend quite a lot of money on my yarn and on my knitting and my hobby in general, but it was, although I really like the cardigan, I didn't want to make a huge investment into it, because some of the yarns were coming out at sort of 80, 90 and upwards pounds. I got this yarn in the end, which is the yarn exactly as recommended in the pattern. It's the Rowan Pure Wool Worsted, 100 grams, and I think it was Love Knitting. It was very serendipitous, really. I received an email after spending several hours looking at different yarns and umming and ahhing. I got the email from Love Knitting saying they had 25% off lots of yarns that day only, a bit of a flash sale. So I had a little look and the yarn was there. So yeah, I went for this. It's just has a colour number on the ball band, but it's actually called Light Navy on the website. And if I show it to you close up, you'll see, whilst it is navy, it's blowing out a little tiny bit. You can see there's some sort of like little purpley flecks in there as well. It's got a bit blown out there on the camera, but you can see that it's not just a solid navy or light navy. That's a little bit better, but quite a nice colour, sort of like what I would call a French navy almost. It's 100 gram balls, and I needed 6 for my size in that cardigan, and I think in the end it worked out to something really reasonable, like about 35 or 36 pounds, and it was free carriage as well. So really pleased to find that I could do the project that I wanted for much less money. It's 100% superwash wool and really nice to knit with. It feels a bit alien actually, having knit so many fingering 4-ply weight, like the last garment, the Madewell, and socks and shawls and things, it seems like really huge chunky yarn, and I'm knitting it on 4.5mm needles. Now, I only cast this on last night. It's a bit of a unusual construction, reading the pattern. You cast on the back and then you join the, I believe you join the front, 2 fronts from the back shoulders, and then join the whole piece together and knit it as one, and then add the sleeves in later with short rows at the top. Now, this is all I have so far, so as I said, I really haven't done much. But the yarn is knitting quite nicely, as you can see. Nice stitch definition. I was just about to start the first pattern repeat, and it was a bit late. If I'm honest, I really wanted to get it cast on so I could show you guys on the podcast, but it was really a little bit too late. I was trying to watch a film, do the pattern, and it was just not really happening. So the first row of the lace pattern I had to rip back, so I shall concentrate on that a bit later, and hopefully next week have you guys something a bit more than this to show. But it's a start, and I shall be entering it into the knit along, and hopefully it will turn out as the pattern. These are 4.5mm high sharps. Well, they're not high sharps actually. When I looked at the packaging, they're just highers. They're really lightweight though, and they've got a nice long cable, so I should have plenty of room to play around with those. So that's my next work in progress. So whether or not I will be able to get this completed by the end of March, who knows, but I will try. And because I think once I get into the swing of it, it will knit up rather quickly because of the size of the needles and the heavier weight of the yarn. So that is my new whip, garment whip. I literally hadn't had the Madewell finished blocking when I was plotting this next whip. I thought it would be quite nice to keep a garment going as well as socks and shawls and bits and pieces. So yeah, cracked on straight away, and that's in my lovely things bag, which is really great for sweater quantities, because you just can't squeeze them in the little project bags. Well, not the ones that I've got. But I do have a bit of a cunning plan for a sweater size project bag, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. So that's the Wainthrop for the Andy Sat-Along. I'm just going to have a little sip of my tea, which is rose lemonade this week. I have been drinking honey and lemon quite a bit because I'm coughing, you know, spluttering and sore throats and so on. And I think can't beat a bit of honey and lemon when you feel like that. Okay, moving on to my next work in progress. Now, this was just a twinkle in my knitting eye last time I podcast. I'm going to do my best to show it to you. This is the speckled shawl, and it's curling up considerably because it's on the cable. I'm going to try and pull the middle section out at least so you can see it. Okay, and if you can see where the increases run down the middle. Yeah, they're showing up quite well there. And this yarn is knitting up so beautifully. This is yarn from La Bien Aimée, which is a French dyer that I picked up from a yarn story at a knitting show in London. And the pattern is, by its name suggesting, speckled, is to highlight the beauty of a speckled yarn. And I think, although this is not, it's got quite a lot of speckles in and quite a lot of other flashes of the different colours, I think it's absolutely stunning, and it's knitting up beautifully. So I've done quite a few. I think I'm on the 4th pattern repeat, one more to go before I swap to the border. So I'm just going to refresh your memory with the image there. So obviously it's this section here that I'm working on in the pink yarn. The pattern is by Parisa Landluft. It's a paid for pattern on Ravelry. I did quite luckily pick it up as free before it went live. There was a limited time you could get the pattern for free. And the other yarn, it's all living in this little project bag that I showed you before. And the yarn for the border is the Dobby yarn, which I showed you guys before. So because this has got a Harry Potter name I'm going to enter this into another knit along, which is the inside number 23 Harry Potter knit along. So you can see I'm really gunning for these, all the cows this year. So I'm hoping to get onto the border section quite soon. I think the contrast of those yarns is going to be really, really nice and very wearable as well. I do like a bit of grey, and as you can see from my cardigan earlier, I do quite like a bit of pink as well. So that's my next work in progress. Moving on from the whips, just looking down at my notes, I do have a plan for another work in progress, which will be the Snow Melt Mystery Knit Along, which is being hosted and has been designed by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. And this is really exciting for me because I've never done a mystery knit along before. And this one, I subscribe to Helen's emails to get updates on what's going on with Curious Handmade. And the email came through for the Snow Melt Mystery Knit Along 2017. And Helen says here, I'll just read you briefly some little excerpt from it. It's that moment between the last slow weeks of winter and the first sweet days of spring. There's a gentle tension in the air as the thaw begins. The cosy joys of hibernation give way to a pleasant restlessness. So yeah, it's the transition from winter to spring. We're all looking forward to that. And this mystery knit along starts on the 2nd of February, and there are 5 clues which will be released. And the pattern goes on sale at an early bird discount on the Monday the 23rd of January, which is tomorrow. So I should be keeping an eye out for that so that I can get my pattern sorted. Now, Helen has sent out in the emails regarding the knit along an image of the yarns that she's used in the design. Now, these are also beautiful La Bien-Aimée yarns, and these colours are absolutely fabulous. Now, you need to have 3 skeins of yarn, and they need to be fingering weight. I think she's used singles in her pattern, and you need to have, there's quite a big lace section apparently from the hints that she's given, and this is probably best in a more solid colour rather than a speckled yarn, just so that you can see the lace pattern, I'm assuming. So I've done a bit of stash diving because I really didn't want to buy another 3 skeins of yarn because I've got quite a lot of skeins sitting in my stash. So I've got a couple of options which I'm going to show you guys. I've popped them all in this little basket so I could keep thinking about them. Just looking and seeing which went well, and it turns out they all sort of interchange quite well together. So the first option that I am considering are these 3, and I have shown you these before as part of a stash update on the podcast. So this chartreuse green is coming out a bit neon on the camera. It isn't quite that neon-y, but I'm thinking one of the these solid colours, either the graphite grey or the chartreuse. Is this one called graphite? I think it is. Yeah, graphite and chartreuse. These are all from Hedgerow Yarns, by the way. So I'm thinking one of those for the lace section, and then with the other and the speckledy, stripy, which is a one-of-a-kind colour, I believe. Yeah, it's a one-of-a-kind. Would be a really nice combination. And I think with this chartreuse green, it would have that spring-like feel to it and have a nice sort of freshness and brightness to it. So there's those 3. I mean, heaven knows I'm actually going to decide when it comes to casting the pattern on and getting the yarn caked up. And another combination that I have in mind are these 3 yarns. So this is from Elm Tree Yarns, and I think I've shown you guys this on the podcast too. This is one of her Beatrix Potter inspired yarns called Mrs. Mouse, and it's a really pretty yarn with a little bit of Selena in. But again, it's got the nice fresh green and some nice muted tones of brown and beige and cream, and a little pop of the lilac, which is a bit like spring crocuses. So I think that would be particularly appropriate for this mystery knit along. And I was thinking of pairing it with these two yarns, which are Rowan Fine Art, that I picked up in John Lewis sale a while ago, not knowing what I'd do with them, but they were such a bargain that I couldn't leave them behind. So this one, I don't think it has a name. I think it's probably got a number, just shade 309. But it's got lots of nice beige and cream tones, which would pair well with this one. And then bringing the green in, which is also Rowan Fine Art. This one is shade, can't see it on the thing, shade 311. I don't know if those greens are going to clash. I need to have a little think about those. And then of course when I started playing around with the yarns, I realised that these three also went really well. And so do these three, go really well. So I really am undecided, but I need to make my mind up quite soon so I can get the yarn caked up, ready for buying the pattern tomorrow and the first clue being released on the 2nd of February. So I don't want to get behind, seeing as it is a mystery knit along and clues are released weekly. It will be nice to keep up and not get too far behind so that I don't get too many spoilers. I'm sure people won't put images up too quickly because they're always quite appreciative of people not having as much time to get on board with the clues. So yes, some nice yarn choices. It's a lovely position to be in, to have so many lovely yarns to decide between. So if you've got any thoughts on what you think are the best combinations, let me know. So yeah, that's probably one choice. And then those hedgerow yarns will be another one. Decisions. Okay, so that's another knit along to look forward to. I've also got another knit along that I mentioned before, which is being run by Julie at Suffolk Socks. And I bought some yarn from her, which I'll show you in a minute, as part of stash enhancement. And she sent with it this postcard. I don't know if you can see that quite clearly. It's the Felixstowe to Ipswich bus, and with the lady sitting there enjoying her knitting. And this inspired Julie to start an Ipswich to Felixstowe or Felixstowe to Ipswich knit along, which we're going to be starting quite soon. But these little postcards are really cute. I really like the image and I can see why she was inspired to do it. So that came along with the yarn that I recently bought. And that yarn is this beautiful skein here. It's one that Julie's hand dyed. It's called Blooming Marvellous. I think she got the name spot on because it's absolutely stunning. I just love all the shades of lavender and purple, the sprinkles, the pinks, little splash of yellow that isn't, it's a nice soft primrose yellow, the greens. It's absolutely beautiful. I've got Julie's, the tag from the yarn here, Suffolk Socks. And this is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 100 grams, 425 meters. So absolutely perfect. I think with the yarn being so stunning, it will either lend itself to being part of a shawl or some vanilla socks, just so you can really see those colour changes. So it's been really, really good. Apart from my bargain sweater quantity for my Wainthrop cardigan, this is the only incoming stash in 2 weeks, so I'm quite impressed. I'm trying to save my yarn pennies for when I go to the retreat in March and possibly go to Unravel Yarn Festival in Farnham, which is on about the 15th of February, I think. So yes, so beautiful yarn there. Thank you, Julie. Might be quite appropriate to use that for Julie's knit along, so I'll keep you posted on how that progresses. Okay, couple of plans that I have sewing wise. I do like to dabble in a bit of sewing. Made a couple of project bags in the past and a couple of bits of fabric, sorry, not fabric, garments as well, a couple of dresses and some tops that I've made. And I really do have the itch to start sewing again. So I just wanted to show you something because I've got a little bit of an idea going on. Just reach over and grab this. Now this, bizarrely, there is a reason why I'm showing you this. This is an old woman magazine that I picked up at a car boot sale many years ago, probably about 15 years ago. It's been sitting in my stash. It's actually dated May 16th, 1953, which was actually the coronation year, Queen Elizabeth II's coronation year. So the reason I bought it was at the time I was doing a lot of scrapbooking, a lot of things like mini books and little trading cards and stuff like that. And I bought it for the old images inside. It's all sorts. It's fascinating actually when you see that's a knitting pattern there. I haven't actually read through that. I thought it'd be quite cool for things like some of the adverts in. Here's a lady that's so happy with her Hoover, which is quite funny. There's some other bits and pieces in here. Pancake makeup. I just thought it'd be nice to cut up and use in various projects. When I opened the magazine, there was a article here where you could embroider your own commemorative coronation sampler, which is a really nice idea. But what was also inside this 50p find at a boot sale was the actual embroidery that somebody had lovingly stitched probably all those years ago, and it had been popped inside the pages of the magazine, folded over and forgotten about. So you can see how beautifully that's been stitched and embroidered. It must have taken hours and hours. It's absolutely stunning. I have no idea who sewed it, what the history of it is, other than the fact that it's for the coronation. But what an amazing find. Now, it's been sitting inside the magazine for as many years as I've had it. And you can see, I'll show you this again. Let's get it the right way round. Just how true to the pattern it is. In the magazine it then suggests that you get a little photo of the Queen on her coronation. I think they print one here. Yeah, there's a little printed one here. You're supposed to cut out and pop on your embroidery before you frame it. But they obviously didn't get quite as far as doing that. And I don't know if I would do anything with that. So the plan is, I'm sure the person selling this would have been a lot more, put a lot more expensive price of 50p on the magazine if they'd known this was inside. My plan is to try and use this in some way. There's not a lot of free fabric edge on this for hemming or whatever, but I don't know if I would be able to incorporate this into a sweater size project bag. I've seen on Danny Little Bobbin's Instagram that she and her mum had made some really beautiful project bags. Her mum had made some embroidered panels and Danny had incorporated those into project bags, and some of those are quite big. So I think you know, they look fab, so I think it's possible. I would leave this probably blank because I wouldn't want to ruin it, but I don't know what you guys think, if it would work or not. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be overly fragile, even given its age, and the back is pretty neat. There's not lots of loose threads that are going to come undone or anything like that. So I'm wondering if I give it a gentle wash and a press, just hand wash it and press it, and then make some kind of patchwork to fit around it and make it into a project bag. I think it would look really pretty and be completely unique. So yeah, that's the plan anyway. I must admit I'd be quite nervous about using it, but it's only sitting folded up in that magazine in on one of my bookshelves, so it'd be nice for it to see the light of day. So I thought I'd share that with you guys and just see, so you could see how pretty it was. Amazing little piece of history there. While we're on the subject of sewing, I found a little work in progress, which is a little needle book that I was making. On the back of it, I've made a little tiny Liberty patchwork on the back and then did some hand quilting. It was a pattern on the, I think it's called the Nana Company blog. It's a free pattern for a needle book. Got the little spine there. I did some little tiny hexies. This has not been, it's just pinned on in the middle at the moment. Yeah, little tiny hexies that I did in Liberty scraps. And you can see it's very much a work in progress. Still got sewing the ends and put the felt pages inside for needles and so on, and put a little button on the front. But it's really, really cute, and I'd obviously just stopped at that point to do something else, probably knitting, and it sat in my sewing basket for ages. I did have a struggle though with these little tiny patchwork squares. For some reason my sewing machine, even though it's a really nice sewing machine, a nice Janome that my mum and dad bought me, it really didn't like sewing the Liberty fabric together. So I'm not sure the best way to get around that. The hand sewing was fine, but the machine kept really, didn't chew the fabric up or anything, but it was just making holes in the fabric and not actually stitching through. So that was a little bit challenging. I need to investigate why that might be. And the rest of the fabric, I think, was just some scraps, just some Tilda fabric and a little bit of fabric that I'd had to line another bag that I'd made. So yeah, I'd like to get that finished because it is pretty, and I really like these little tiny hexies. Although hand stitching is not really my forte, I'm not particularly neat, but I don't think they're too bad. I think they are passable, especially for something for myself. So yeah, a little bit of stitching today. I don't think I've got anything else to show you guys today. Been through all the finished objects, so not much stashing coming, which was good for me. I do need to get our Ravelry group up and running so that I can share show notes on there and maybe start off a knit along and just get to know some of you guys a bit better, which would be really, really nice. So I will be cracking on with hopefully my sewing of a new project bag, cracking on with my Waynestrop cardie and also my shawl. So I'll be showing you those things next week, hopefully. And I hope you all have a really lovely week. Get lots of knitting, sewing, whatever crafting you enjoy done, and have a nice week. Thank you ever so much for watching. Take care. Bye.